We've been trained from the very beginning to fear nuclear power. And with it, our terror of radiation. It was in our subconsciousness. There was the original sin of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. It became a collective trauma, with school children responding to nuclear alerts and the need for fallout shelters, having been told more than once that civilization could be destroyed in a few moments with little, if any, warning. There were movies in the 1950s already picturing the doom of man from radiated sea monsters and all kinds of genetically mutated creatures. No doubt it was the outcome for us who were severing Mother Nature from human nature with our technology. It was a horrible vision, bigger than any child's basic fear of death. It was a death of everyone and everything. The end of the world almost happened in October 1962 during the Cuban Missile Crisis. But President Kennedy and Premier Nikita Khrushchev of the Soviet Union mercifully backed down. Young people began protesting the system that produced cruel wars and nuclear weapons, along with various injustices and the destruction of nature. A counterculture emerged, offering a broad critique of American society. Industrial capitalism and corporate America were seen as the enemy. Earth Day 1970 marked a visible shift in global consciousness. Drawing huge crowds, it became a key rallying point for environmentalism and the counterculture. It created broad public support for anti-pollution measures, and within this atmosphere, the government's push for nuclear energy was suddenly suspect. Licensing and construction of nuclear reactors was ramping up. And the fear of nuclear energy plants in your own backyard merged into an army of other pollutions fouling the earth.
We realize that when these multinational corporations, we're going to have uranium mining and uranium milling. We're going to have possibly nuclear power plants. We're going to possibly have high-level nuclear waste disposal.
No one in the world wants nuclear waste.
We have to have either oil or coal or whatever, certainly not nuclear.
And as with all emerging technologies, there were setbacks.
It was the first step in a nuclear nightmare. As far as we know at this hour, no worse than that.
3 Mile Island was the only famous nuclear accident in the United States ever.
1,000 gallons of radioactive water escaped into the reactor building.
Yet no one was harmed. But the public was shaken. And the breathless news coverage with no acknowledgement of the lack of casualties.
Officials of Metropolitan Edison conceded some workers may have been contaminated.
Stoked their fears into a sense of urgency and even panic.
It's a lot worse than what they're telling us.
But in a twist of history, it happened just as a fictional nuclear power disaster movie was in theaters.
Barney, give me some water. God damn. A few minutes ago.
Kim,
No, please,
tell us what happened inside.
Misinformation about nuclear's true potential and safety spread rampant.
That if there's one accident, it could just devastate an area like southern New York State.
Nuclear power would produce over 32,000 cancer deaths per year in the United States.
People don't think well when they're scared. Fear is a mind killer. And all these fears traumatized young people.
I'm trying to tell you about radiation and unborn children as it causes their legs to be. Believe it.
And as momentum built towards anti-nuclear sentiment, a second, potentially avoidable disaster struck.
We were recently stricken by a disaster, the Chernobyl nuclear power accident. It deeply affected the Soviet people and disturbed world opinion.
I too once believed the environmentalists were right and that nuclear power was dangerous. We were, in our way, terribly miseducated, subconsciously cross-wiring nuclear war with nuclear power. And then, as nuclear energy was being quietly shunted to the side as an aberration in our scientific development, another physical revolution snowballed into the public consciousness, completely eclipsing the nuclear controversy: climate change. It was as bad or even worse to the imagination as nuclear extinction had been, which in a way we had accustomed ourselves to. But here now was a monster that could, in fact, deliver the end of the world. Climate scientists were now warning us that humans were destabilizing the world's ecological systems. In 1988, the congressional testimony of Dr. James Hansen, a leading climate scientist, rang the alarm loudly and clearly.
We have already